Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Search Engine Journal webinar. Great to have you here. I am here with AJ Garrick, Global VP of AI and Consulting Services with Botify, and Frank Vidovich, VP Solution Consulting at Botify. So AJ and Frank, I want to give a big thanks for you both being here. How are you doing today?
Excited. We're excited to be here and excited to get to the Q&A from the audience. It's a fun group and happy to be here.
Same. Anytime I get to just riff with AJ a little bit and talk SEO and probably distract each other throughout a presentation, I look forward to it. So apologies in advance if if that happens too much. But anybody who's seen us present before probably are expecting that. So
yeah, I'm sure Frank has a couple dad jokes in the hopper, just waiting. SEO dad jokes, just waiting to come out.
Yes.
I love a great dad joke. So I'm here for these. First, I love today's title. So we're here for how do you track what doesn't rank, measuring visibility in AI search. What I love about that is we get this question so many times in so many of these webinars is, how do we track this? How do I know if I'm visible? So I'm really excited to get to this. So I'm not going to do much, but I do have a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'm going to turn it over to you all to, destroy each other's presentations. It sounds like it's going to be a blast. I'm here for it. So for all of our attendees out there, if you need closed captioning, it's the little CC in the top right of your screen. Give that a click. We will have a poll for you today. We're going to do Q&A at the end of the presentation. So like they said, if you have any questions, add them to the Q&A tab. If you see a question that you like, give it a little thumbs up. It'll tell us that that question is important to you all. We'll do our best to front load those. At the end of the call, we're going to send you a survey. Just stick around for that. It just tells us how today's webinar went, and it gives you a chance to let us know if there's any topics that you would like to see. So we'd love your feedback there. I think we've got some handouts. There's some little emojis at the bottom. So if you see something you like, give a little high five, a little smile, let us know we're doing all right. Use the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from. I am hanging out in West Virginia for any of those who don't know. And with that, Frank, AJ, I'm going to turn them over to you. They're all yours.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Where do we got? I've seen Indianapolis, UK, Northeastern Indiana, Milwaukee, New York City, Minnesota, Cape Town. We seeing people from all over. So thank you all for taking an hour of your time. Mexico City, Portland. All right. We are well represented across the globe. So appreciate you all taking an hour of your time here to spend it with AJ and I. This is a topic both of us quite enjoy talking about. So I know we're looking forward to getting right into this. So we've already kind of have ourselves introduced, so we can skip right through that and actually go right to our poll question for the for the day. And do I see jokes being made in love it. There's jokes in the chat already. Carson Crane, you are
Carson,
your favorite participant already. All right, look at that. It took slide 3 till we got derailed. Appreciate the audience interaction though. So let's speaking of interaction, let's go right to the poll question. Here we go. Are you now tracking AI prompts alongside organic rankings? Okay. Oh, wait, it's still going. I was like, wait, the numbers were surprising me there for a second. And let's see. It looks like it is still going.
Don't lie. We'll know. We'll know.
This is a safe space. We can all share with each other while it is being recorded though. So maybe we just watch, that's a reminder for me and AJ. All right, let's see. We're going through. Looks like the poll is still open. So polls are still out. There's no waiting. Just get in line and cast your vote here. Let's see. All right. I don't know.
Oh, there we go. End it there. 50-50.
That's it. I'm going to close it. It's half.
Wow. It depends.
Yes. Okay. We are off and, off and running. So we got it depends. So interesting. Okay. AJ, let's just even go off script here on slide 4, but does that surprise you?
Actually it kind of does. I would expect that. I thought it would go the other way where folks weren't doing both yet as much, but 50-50 is a little surprising to me. How about you?
And I thought it would be the reverse. I thought there would be more yeses versus versus no. So So interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And interesting because, rankings are traditionally what we think
Yeah.
about, when we're talking about search. It's a whole new world out there though. So I'm actually going to kick it over, to AJ, who's going to take us through the first part of our presentation here before he kicks it back to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big overarching thing, to get a little preachy at the start is you can't measure the same way that you've been doing for the last few years. Actually, honestly, probably many of you for a career. And if we're not changing, we're doing something wrong, right? I don't have to tell you that AI search is a hot topic. It's diverging. Actually, my LinkedIn this morning was hot with the is it GEO, is it SEO? People were coming in salty today on the old LinkedIn. So we're not going to solve the SEO GEO debate, but I think we can all agree that it has the same foundations, right? So for AI search, for you to be successful, we have the same foundations in traditional SEO, especially when it comes to technical SEO. Many of the foundations are the same. So really, we're thinking about reframing our approach. And this is something, if you've been in SEO a long time, you've had to do many times. I mean, SEO, search and SEO, frankly, started out more directory style for some of us, Yahoo, right, days. And then we went to search, and then we went to mobile search. And now we're changing from search and rankings to conversations and visibility. And each time that interface changes, where you go from an interface of a directory style to a mobile search interface to now this conversational interface, behavior changes. And so as SEOs, we're nothing if not adaptable, right? So now's the time to kind of really reframe and rethink that approach. When I talk to, what thing I love about this job, actually someone asked me today, what do you love about Botify? And the answer I gave, which is true, is I love meeting with leaders of companies across the globe and hearing what they're struggling with, hearing their strategies. And the biggest thing that I start to hear when I'm talking to a CMO, is everyone talks about AI disruption like this thing that's going to happen, like agentic commerce, like that's going to happen. It's going to disrupt. And where I'm more focused, yes, that will happen. Maybe it's a few years away, but I'm more interested in what's disrupting right now, what's already in your data that's disrupting today, not some future version of your company. So many of you are probably aware of this, but Google, without warning, as Google is apt to do, disabled the N100 ability. So, us dorks, we were using 100 results at a time instead of the normie 10, right? So most SEOs were doing that. And without warning, Google nuked it. You can see there's a QR code there. If you want to grab it, we have a blog post with more detail on it and some of the slides or some of the data, a deeper dive. You've probably seen others report about this as well, and it's probably in your data right now. So why was this important? So this is Botify data. I had our data team pull a cohort of e-commerce and retail. So this is your peers if you're in e-commerce and retail. Side note, I checked every other industry and it showed up exactly the same way. So if you're like, well, I'm in healthcare, it showed up the same way in healthcare. So this is Botify. If you don't know, we have a lot of enterprise clients and upper mid-market clients as well. So if you think of a big box retailer, a shoemaker, think of 3 or 4 brands. 3 of those are probably Botify customers. So this is a really large data set that you're looking at. And what we see is this massive cliff dive across the board in impressions, right around that September 10th, September 12th range. If you noodle through this, and I'll do it real quick and we'll come back. So clicks stayed, impressions drop like a stone. Clicks stay pretty much flat. Look at that 0 line, and it doesn't really change very much there in September, right? The clicks stay flat. Click-through rate goes through the roof, and everyone's celebrating because average position is improved 366%. So if you've been following along with this, you probably get where I'm about to go. Is this true? Did your impressions truly drop? What I believe happened is we were able to, as I like to say, trip over the truth. We were able to see a lot of noise that was in the signal. This is coming from, there's not enough SEOs in the world. It wasn't the SEOs removing the N100, right? It wasn't that. It was synthetic data. So your rank trackers, your AI visibility tools, synthetic traffic was inflating these numbers to begin with. And so the second Google dropped it, everyone's impressions tanked. I got several panicked calls from executives at very large companies going, what the heck is going on? So it's affecting your data right now. It's not, AI is literally affecting your data. Like your Q3 data right now probably has problems in it specifically because of this incident here. And it sort of shows you a lot of that noise in the machine. So we can get into that maybe in Q&A if you want to get a little deeper dive into that. We can, like, what does it actually mean? But essentially, the big takeaway is a lot of noise in the machine. The other thing I wanted to pull for you guys is just bot activity in general. So again, Botify sits on tons of log data from all the sites, globally. So again, I pulled the e-commerce and retail, and this is a 75% increase since July. So since the summer, we've seen bot activity really increase. And because you got, I'll tell you specifically what this is. So it's not all bots. So it's chat bots. So it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, the usual Gemini, the usual players here. So that the AI bot activity has been exploding in our data set at the same time that we're seeing all of this disruption in rank tracking and traditional metrics. So the question I would posit to you is, how much of this data that you're relying on has been synthetic noise? How much has it been inflated all along? If I had a nickel for every time someone says, AJ, my impressions are up, but my clicks are flat or down, I would have a lot of nickels, right? Like, Frank, you hear this story, right? It's a very common refrain. My impressions are up, my clicks are down. How much of that actually, the impression data, was synthetic? That's why you're not getting the click. Very, very interesting topic to dive into. So it really leaves us with two questions, and I'll pass it over to Frank to kind of dive in here. How do you measure success with all this change? And what specific actions should you take, right? Like, what are we going to do about it? We all see the problem. What are we going to do about it? How do you measure it? So I'll toss over to Frank.
Cool. All right. Yes. Thank you for that, AJ. And yeah, I'm going to go through, what are some of these metrics that you should be looking at or could be looking at, as well as some of the challenges, that exist in measuring success in AI search. Right now, before AJ brings us home with the kind of the, so what, and and what should you be, doing? So when we take a look at, and when we think about, traditional search, versus AI search, what we are really seeing in a lot of cases is the buyer journey or customer journey has really started to become, truncated. So if you think about it in the past, when you were, going out and, doing your research to buy a product, there were many steps along the way. You might do, many searches. You might go back and forth between the engine that you were using, and then, ultimately make your conversion. Now, a lot of that is taking place, in conversational search, whether that be ChatGPT or, AI mode or whatever mode that you are using to be able to, whatever form you're doing your searches in. So off the bat, start to get comfortable with the fact that there might be, fewer clicks along the way in all of your data, moving forward, because it's something that you're going to want to start to get ahead of, today. So in terms of, measurement, when we take a look at, what's the kind of the big difference, and why we even titled this, how do you track, or, what you can't rank, is ranking in traditional search engines has it got to a point where it was pretty deterministic. Now, there's always been some challenges in terms of things like personalization, localization, right? Like,
yeah,
exactly. Like I search for pizza near me, it's going to come up with different places than if AJ. Like everybody knows that. That's kind of been, kind of the one real known, limitation, so to speak, of it. But that's been around for years. We've all kind of gotten, used to that. But in that world, content was king, right? This is why there was, a lot of companies have entire content teams creating content for search queries that we know are popular that are going to, to ultimately lead to, conversions. AI search has kind of, changed that, and it's much more probabilistic. And I nailed the pronunciation of that. I was worried I was going to get tongue-tied on it, but we was able to get that out. And now context is king. So we're not going and doing individual searches anymore. You're having conversations. When you are ultimately doing product research, right? You might not be doing 10 searches. You might start with one question and then ultimately have 15 responses, along the way. So context and intent is really what is, making the difference in this new world of search. And that's why we say you don't rank in AI search. AI platforms are not search engines. They aren't intended to be. They function, very different. They don't rank content. They answer questions that you give, that you are, prompting them with. So rank as a traditional metric is not something that, we should really be thinking about when we are thinking about, AI search and, and how we are going to, to measure it. I think the other real challenge here is that aside from, just the intent and the mode in which we're interacting with these engines being different, think about, again, a normal interaction that you have with ChatGPT today. You might ask it like, hey, I'm training to run my first half marathon. I need some running shoes. Well, it's most likely not going to give you back a list of 5 running shoes, that you might want to, to look into first. It's probably going to be like, okay, cool. Congrats, ChatGPT, very, very polite. It might say like, congrats on training for your first half marathon. Let's figure out, what type of shoe you might be looking for. Like, do you pronate or not? You might not even know what that means if you're new, you're new into running, but it's going to be conversational along the way. You might not show up in that initial prompt, but you might show up in prompt 8, prompt 9. How do you measure that right now? There is no means to do to do a conversation or to scrape an entire conversation with one of these new engines, the way that we think of scraping and getting rankings in the past. All right. Yep. And there we go. Actually, sorry, I combined both of those slides, into one. But essentially, just again, saying the same thing here, where again you were having conversations. There's going to be multiple layers to it. In addition, we talked about personalization in search has always been a challenge, but by nature, LLMs are going to give us all very different, responses. As we go through. AJ and I could ask the same exact question right now. All of you in there can ask the same exact question, and we're going to get vastly different answers based off of the previous history, with ChatGPT today. I could tell you right now, I am big in ChatGPT on taking recipes for food that are really bad for me and trying to make them somewhat healthy. So if I asked it, hey, I need a pair of running shoes to run a half marathon, it's going to know that, and it's going to respond guaranteed with something like, hey, that's cool. That aligns with, all of your trends right now of trying to find healthy recipes, running complements that. Great. Let's figure out more. Somebody else isn't going to have that same, that same history. So that initial prompt is going to be vastly, vastly different. And that is, I think in a nutshell, kind of just sums up to me the challenge of even trying to, to really understand, how you are appearing in prompts. But I don't know, AJ, anything you would add, to that?
Well, I like just know that I'm out there in the world balancing you out. So like I'm asking chat, like, what's the legally like maximum amount of butter that I can apply to the dish, So just know that we're about that.
How can I add more carbs to the salad?
Yeah, 100%. And I think someone was posting a little bit earlier, you got to be careful. It's like garbage in, garbage out. Like you can make yourself the best visibility report ever to show your boss if you cheat, if you put things that are very probable that you're going to show up and be visible for. Just be careful. Don't make, big decisions on tracking 300 prompts, and make sure that you're not putting your thumb on the scale with the prompts that you track, right?
Yeah. So tip number one is what you want to do is you want to put in only prompts that make you look great to your boss.
To your boss, yeah.
Exactly. So
yeah, right.
99% visibility. We're doing good.
Yeah, you're crushing it. We're crushing it.
So, all right, we talked now about some of the challenges, because I think that is very helpful context in just how difficult of a job you all have right now. Because I guarantee I saw the number, however many we had live here before. I would say, again, if we did a poll right now, how many of you have been asked by your boss, why aren't we showing up for this prompt? And there's probably a very specific prompt that your boss has that they're putting into ChatGPT every day and saying, we're not there. We're not there.
This is the new, like, our CEO Googled this and we didn't show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
all the SEO department.
While it is extremely difficult, we know the answer isn't just like, well, it's tough right now. The data might be directional, so we can't do it. You have to have, some level of answer, but it is helpful, I think, to, to kind of have that, to have that context. So, but let's go through, actual, measurement of, how we are looking, how we think of this, and, how we think how folks should be looking at it. If this is, what we think of as kind of the traditional, search funnel, and how, a lot of folks have been looking at search for years, right? First, in order for a page to ever get you traffic, first it must be crawled. All the content must be rendered by a search engine so that you could ultimately go into the index, rank for keywords, and then, get clicks, and ultimately, convert for it again, whatever it is that you are, you're trying to sell. The AI search funnel is fundamentally doing a lot of the same things. The real difference is that middle area is where the measurement is going to be, extremely difficult, at least right now for folks. We can see, what pages are AI bots and all the LLMs, which are they crawling, which are they using, to generate answers for users. We can see generally it's gotten better. I know it's still not perfect to be able to completely and accurately measure traffic from, from all of these new engines, but it is certainly better now than it was, say 12 months ago, now that ChatGPT has done some things so that it's the data comes through a little clearer. But that middle one is where it is really difficult right now. There is no ChatGPT console like there is Google Search Console. There is no real guaranteed, 100% source of truth that we have for prompt volume, the way that everybody has relied on Google, Google AdWords for, say, search volume over the last, 20 to 30 years of search. And that's where the real challenge, starts to come into play for all of you. Now, one of the answers, for that middle area where measurement is tough right now, before we even get into start talking about, say, like, well, how do we appear for specific prompts and specific engines, is looking at your log data. If you're not looking at your log data right now, it is certainly something I would say, you want to be looking into in the future, in the near immediate future, because right now it is one of, I don't know, maybe it's not the single source of truth of how you're showing up in AI search, but it is certainly the strongest source of truth right now for how you're showing up in, in AI search. And it has always kind of been that with search. I think when it comes to log data, I think there's always been a, somewhat of a misconception of you only need to look at logs if you're a super, super, super large website. But even for smaller and medium-sized websites, there's always something to be gained from understanding, which pages Google is and other bots, are or maybe aren't crawling. But it is now really, really critical to be doing this for all of these new, AI engines. And if this is something new to you and you haven't done it, in the past, it is a little different than search bots, where it was a little, I don't want to say easy, but it was a little more straightforward. If Googlebot crawled a page, you had a pretty good idea that it could potentially put you in your index. With AI bots and, the AI engines, there's kind of three buckets of bots that you want to be looking at. We'll go through these in a little bit more detail in one of the upcoming slides, but there are the training bots, and those are the bots that, the LLMs are using, to build their, their training index. Then there are the indexing bots that they are using to build and maintain their own search index. So we see this in our log data across our customers quite a bit right now. The OpenAI search bot, for instance, is really starting to crawl the web. They're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have a search engine yet, but they're probably going to be using that for something in the very near future. So that is something to take a look at. And then the most important one, that I would recommend is taking a look at the RAG bots or the real-time retrieval bots, because these are the ones that are really going to give you an idea as to which of the pages, which of the products, which of the content on your website today, all of these LLMs and AI search engines are using in real responses, to users. So this is where, if you do show up in question 8 in a conversation, you'll get an idea, a much better idea as to which actual URL you are showing up, with across your website. So log files, your best source of, truth. I don't know if he is listening to us right now, but credit to Dan Reno and our team here at Botify, because he kind of came up with this next thing that I am about to say. So I'm not going to take any credit, any credit for it at all. This was, something that I first heard him say, and it really resonated with me, and is now something that I've been kind of preaching to all of our customers, and prospects that we're talking to. But right now, one of the best proxies for impression data, which we know doesn't really, concretely exist in, say, ChatGPT, is looking at all of the ChatGPT user logs, and that is their real-time retrieval bot, looking at all of that data to understand which pages, the ChatGPT is using, in responses. Spoiler alert, when we look at this across our customer base, what we generally see, by the way, is that a lot of the pages that are most popular in search are also most popular in terms of what ChatGPT is using to, to generate a response, right now. But some key metrics to look at here, again, if you're not, is the bot hits by user agent. We'll go through the exact ones that ChatGPT specifically is using on the next slide. But which pages are bots hitting by page type? So if you're e-commerce, are they hitting your category pages, your product listing pages, or are they going directly to your product detail pages? And then where are users ultimately coming? Which pages are they ultimately coming in from? And you could see that really, really well in your in your log files today. All right. So I mentioned taking a look at the actual, user agents. So these are the 3 to familiarize yourself with right now from ChatGPT.
There's some chatter while you're talking. People are kind of like, what do I track? Like okay, I'm going in the logs. Like, what am I looking for? Like, this, obviously you could do this with the other bots, right? Like you could do Gemini, but start with the, 800-pound gorilla of ChatGPT. If you're not getting that traffic, you can worry about Perplexity later, right? Yeah. But people are kind of asking, like, okay, like when I'm in there, like what am I actually looking for? And so this will be a perfect slide for that.
Perfect. Yeah. So I mean, I would say high level, again, functionally very similar to how log file analysis has worked from a search perspective. You want to know which pages, again, on your site, and I'll just use pages generically. Again, if you're e-commerce, you probably just want to know what products are being used in responses. If you're a content site, you want to know, which pages are being used and cited as sources, by their training models. But you want to know which are being used and which are not being used, because that's going to give you a really good idea of where you need to, put a lot of your attention in terms of at least optimizing, for AI search today. Very similarly to, what we did with search engines, for the last 15 years, right? You would look and say, okay, Google has crawled all of these pages. So I know Google likes these. These are already getting traffic. Now here's this other group of pages that Google is not crawling today. I'm going to spend some time focusing on, why that might be. Maybe it's because the content isn't great. Maybe it's because I'm not linking to them well, whatever, it was with Google. We want to start doing that same type of analysis with ChatGPT and all of these other, new engines. All right. So here are the 3 that you want to take a look at, and they are very different in intent, so to speak. So GPT bot, this is the training bot that powers, the large language models like OpenAI's, ChatGPT. This is what they're using to crawl their site and to build out their training model. And just for the sake of anybody who hasn't asked ChatGPT how up to date its training, model is, I asked it right before this session just to make sure I had the most up to date, and it's still June of 2024. So anything that you are asking ChatGPT specifically that has taken place after June of 2024, it's not using its training model for, and it is using real-time, retrieval. We'll get into, some of the sources of that if you are unfamiliar. But if you're a content site, I would say this is probably, more interesting, for you, because then you start to get a sense of which of your content it's using, and some of those, again, maybe the responses that are maybe more historical in context, or nothing that requires any sort of real time information.
The biggest the biggest mistake that I see people making are lumping all of this data into like one number that they report up on. They're like, here's our traffic from AI. And this happens at the biggest companies in the world. Like I'll leave the name out of it, but it's a publisher everyone in this room knows. And they were kind of high-fiving, like, hey, look at our traffic from AI is really high right now. It's an all-time high. It's going great. We're doing well. But then when we broke down the data for them, we were like, that's the TikTok training bot. It's taking your content and training it for its AI model. It's not it's not a user. It's not, right? And so we'll get into this, but if you don't get some granularity, at least the basics, start with ChatGPT, get the granularity. If you don't get the granularity, you'll never control it. You'll never be able to make governance decisions, because you'll just have this one, lumped in number here's my ChatGPT traffic. It's like, no, that's a bot that's training. This is the search bot. This is potentially on behalf of an actual human, a user. Very different, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then I think the other one that I've seen along those same lines is if you're just looking at, say, the OpenAI, search bot, and saying, again, same thing, we're doing great. OpenAI search is crawling our site a ton. It's like, okay, that's not a bad thing, but OpenAI is not really using that right now, again, as of today, to power results. They're still using Google and Bing results in largely. And that's also a hot topic that we don't have time to get fully into, as to, which results it is relying on more. They have the partnership with Bing. I know there's been a lot of studies that show that maybe Google results are kind of creeping their way in, more and more. But if you have a ton of, say, crawl activity on your site right now from the OpenAI search bot, like I said, it's not a bad thing, but it might not necessarily be leading to any sort of tangible, so to speak, benefit immediately, because it's not being leveraged, for the real-time results yet, and it's not being used to inform the training models. And the third one, and this is, like I said, this is the one that I find the most interesting right now, and that is ChatGPT User. This is the one that ChatGPT is using for real-time retrieval. So if maybe you're new to the space and don't quite fully understand by what we mean by this, essentially what happens right now, let's use my running shoe example, right? ChatGPT can go out, it can say, all right, Frank needs a running shoe, he tends to, pronate when he runs based off of, the conversation, that we're having. He wants a shoe with a lot of cushion, blah, 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 right? All that stuff. It's going to then go out and it's going to leverage Google and Bing search results to get an initial list of, potential shoes. And then it'll leverage some other sources as well for user reviews and, and things like that. But then what it has to do is it has to go out and it has to say, okay, the Asics Gel Nimbus 26. I know that off the top of my head because I was literally searching for it this morning. But it'll say, that shoe is available for whatever, $159.99 at this retailer. It's in stock. Here's another alternative. Here's another alternative. It's got to use that bot. It's got to use that user agent to be able to crawl the page in real time to give you, the answer. And that is why, I look at this and I say, well, that's definitive proof that I showed up in in an answer to a user when they were asking ChatGPT a question. And that's when you could start to get an idea. It's like, let's say you sell running shoes. You're like, okay, these are the 4 that it's always showing, but I sell 40 others. I need to get these other 40 others. And then you might look at it and go like, oh, well, it's showing my 4 most popular, and these other ones, they don't have a lot of reviews. Nobody's talking about them a lot. Maybe I need to do some outreach and get these mentioned elsewhere so that, there's some user generated content, around them. But those are all the kind of things that you can start to do, when you are leveraging, your log file data specifically, when it comes to the, to the AI bots. Now from there, what you want to do is actually then start to combine that data with directional data, that you can get to really measure AI visibility. Because as much as I am saying, we can use ChatGPT user logs as a proxy for impression, what you won't necessarily know is you won't know what was the prompt that running shoe showed up for. You won't know, was it me asking for a recommendation about, training for a race? Was it somebody asking for a recommendation about, going on long walks with their dog, or whatever the case may be? So you need to use that in addition to, using some of this directional data to measure AI visibility, and start to, combine that into one, report, or however you want to visualize that, for yourself. So we've covered all the log file analysis already, so I will skip over that. But once you have that, you want to cross-reference that with actual analytics data to understand, how much traffic are you getting from AI search, and then start to see like, okay, well, is this page that is being mentioned a lot by ChatGPT actually generating traffic or not? Because it might be, maybe it's being shown and it's not being shown with, say, a positive sentiment. So you want to, start to know that. We'll get into, how you can measure that, as well, and get a general idea of, what are the topics and products, so to speak, on your site that people are interested in. So kind of a lot of what you've done for traditional search for years, just looking at the, the different channels. And then we want to look at visibility, we call it visibility dashboard or visibility data, to understand, what questions, do you need to be answering on your site to be able to show up, and where, where are the answers coming from? I think I got one more. Yep. All right. So here are some metrics, that we look at, and these are things that there's a lot of ways to, a lot of, tools out there. We obviously, as we we look at these are, the ones that, that we look at within our platform. But a lot of these are things that, you can be, leveraging data to find out right now. But presence rate, just, the percentage of answers that you are showing up for. And also should have already mentioned, actually, I think AJ, you might be covering or you already covered the garbage in, garbage out debate. All right. Or are you going to touch on that in the next section as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. All
right, perfect. Then we'll let AJ cover that. All right. Citation rate, of the times you're showing up, how often are you actually getting linked to, from those, in those answers? Sentiment mix, is it positive, neutral, or negative? So you can flag, answers where you're showing up with a negative intent, a negative sentiment. And then maybe, again, you work with your PR team or whoever on your side to, start to address some of that. What is your model coverage? So you want to be looking at, again, we're already talking about ChatGPT, like we talked about Google 20 years ago, where it's just becoming the one, but there are certainly other engines you want to be looking at. If you can only look at one, that is probably the one to look at, but you also want to be looking at things like Perplexity, Gemini, AI Mode, all of these other new players that are, they're popping up. And you also want to look at journey coverage. So you want to mix in what you're measuring and what types of prompts you are, you're looking to see how you appear for across, the awareness stage, research phase, and decision-making phase of, again, whatever it is you are, whatever it is you're selling or whatever kind of content you have on your, on your website today. And with that, I will now kick it back to AJ.
Yeah, and just a couple more slides, and we're going to get to Q&A. I think I got like 3 or 4 slides, so we'll jump into Q&A. I know there's a lot of questions. I'm actually going to go back to this last one. I think it's the easiest thing to jump over. So if you think about AI visibility, almost everyone jumps to, am I present and am I being cited, right? Like, do I show up and am I getting that citation? And that's kind of all the tooling, all the buzz, all the talk is about that. I think, I'm going to be a little bold here, I think that's entirely wrong. Like, you're going to get a wrong picture. It's not rank tracking, so it's probabilistic. It's nice to know. It's good data to know. I'm not saying it's not valuable. What I'm most interested is the last one, though, the journey coverage. This is the most data you're ever going to get about mapping to intent, mapping back to the user intent. You should be able to use this type of data in a new way. Don't use it like a rank tracker. You'll end in with the SADs, right? Like, don't use it like a rank tracker. Use it to understand user intent like you've never been able to do before. We've always like played with this topic, like, oh, here's my intent. It's commercial intent. It's navigational intent. That's not intent, right? That's not true intent. So I'm really excited about that last one. And I think honestly, people are missing the boat entirely by not focusing there. Really, really, really understanding user intent is so possible with these new tools. Whereas before we had to infer it from keywords and we didn't have the tooling to map intent. So 3 or 4 slides here on actions to take. First one is you need to normalize your data. I strongly believe there was a lot of synthetic noise in the signal. It showed up in all Botify data, all customer types, all at once, the second Google nuked the N100. And that's the proof. That's all the proof I need. But all the other metrics, everything I would expect to happen, happened. Click-through rates stayed the same. Why? Because bots aren't clicking. They don't have thumbs, right? So they're not clicking through. So that's why the impressions cliff dive. So go back, set September 2025 as your baseline. I would be setting 2 sets of reports. One, here's what's really happening, and here's what's reported. And we believe by looking at our data, go back and look at your September data, you'll see the cliff dive, and then it'll start to recover. That is where you need to normalize your data going forward. How much of that data was synthetic? So apply that kind of discount across the board, and then you really need to adjust your year-over-year data. We talked about, in the beginning, I was joking about like SEO, GEO war and all this kind of thing. But those technical foundations are the tie that kind of binds both of those together. It's not exciting, fun, and sexy, but you need a governance plan. You do. You can't govern what you don't control. And many websites I go to, they don't know if TikTok is training on their data. They don't know if they say ChatGPT, here's the traffic I'm getting from it. I'm like, well, how much of that is an actual user that could purchase something, right? You have to know. And then if you know, you can govern. You can say, I'm going to allow this bot to train. I'm going to block this bot from training. Here's where I'm actually do need to care about this, because now 2% of my actual transactions are driven by AI. You need to know this so you can govern it. And all the things that come with that. So analyze the bot behavior. Think about JavaScript reliance. I always say AI is not a technology you rent. It's a customer you serve. If your customer had issues like accessibility issues, you would solve for it, right? AI has accessibility issues. It really struggles with JavaScript. So why are you serving it JavaScript? Those kinds of things. Structured data, obviously, if it's server-side rendered, the better, or else it may not render the JavaScript, right? that we were just talking about. But you can mark up with more intent signals than Google currently supports for the AI, because the AI has context. And then lastly, build or broker some type of AI performance framework. Obviously, Botify, we have a tool we would gladly sell you. The others have tools on the markets, or you can start to, even if you're, just solo entrepreneur, like you could build out some basics today that would at least give you a flashlight in the dark, right? So looking at those page types, looking at creating like refer, like in your analytics dashboard, like making sure you're tracking the referrer plus UTM codes. Which prompts to track matters a lot. Like I said, you want to tell yourself a lie? It's really easy to do with AI, right? Like very easy to do. So be careful what you're tracking on the prompting and what decisions you're making. But it's not, I don't want you to fall into the camp of like, oh, it's so messy, I shouldn't even look at it. No, you should look at it. Just look at it with awareness that you're looking at 2 different systems, deterministic and stochastic. You're looking at 2 very different systems, but you need data to make proper decisions. You just got to be careful with this data because it's not deterministic. So that gets us to final thoughts, Frank, and then we are on to Q&A. And I think we have good 10, 15 minutes worth of Q&A. Frank, what's your kind of final thought to take us to QA?
Yeah, I mean, I think first one, and even just kind of looking at some of the, kind of the questions in, in the chat. Hopefully, this covers, some of it. I think, one is, again, if you weren't looking at log data today to measure, how your clients are, being leveraged by AI platforms, LLMs, again, whichever term we want to refer to them as. That's one of the biggest things I would try to give you as a takeaway, that you should start, because it is, like I said, the best proxy for for impressions right now, until there is a better source of data. I saw one of the questions saying, big thing I learned is, I'm just going to keep giving Google GA4 reports in terms of traffic, because the most real. I mean, I would say that's not necessarily actually it's kind of in agreement with what I think AJ and I are saying, is that a lot of the data that exists right now, kind of to the point I know AJ made earlier, is synthetic. And it can be tricky. I think you don't want to shy away from it, completely. But when using it for clients or internally, you just kind of want to know the caveats, for it. And the other big one I would say is my final thought, as I kind of alluded to it already, but and going back to some of the charts that that AJ showed about data and impressions, falling off and things like that. If you aren't normalizing your data and you aren't starting to have conversations today internally with, whether it's your clients directly, if you're on, like, say, agency side, or, with the key stakeholders in your organization, if you are in-house, is start to prepare them now for the fact that clicks are very likely going to be down in the future. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. We're seeing AI truncate the user journey, and what used to take 8 clicks to create a conversion maybe takes 3. Is that good? Is that bad? Not necessarily, as long as you're still getting that conversion. However, if you aren't having that conversation now and you aren't creating that narrative internally, you could have some tricky conversations, next year at this time. If you're like, oh yeah, traffic's down 10%, revenue is pretty stable, so we're good. I knew this was coming, I just didn't tell you. You might have, again, some challenging conversations that you don't want to have.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I can be short on final thoughts, and then we get to the Q&A. I would implore you, don't use this new data the old way. How boring, right? Like, and I'm talking to myself too, right? Like, let's do something new. Do what you couldn't do before. So don't take this data and try to fill the hole in your donut hole in your data and say, like, oh, here's my ranking data from AI. It's not going to be accurate. You shouldn't make decisions off of that. What it's most interesting right now to me is mapping to intent. Like with the running shoe example, if I was a running shoe company right now, I would want to know every intent that a runner would have. And I would break it down by all of these different situations, different types, ages, events, styles, walking. And I want to know if I'm Nike, like, how many intents do I map to and how many do I not, right? And you can get that from this data. And it really puts the focus back on the customer, back on the buyer, back on the user, and making your brand map back to her outcome that she's trying to achieve is a long-term win. That's more than an algorithmic win. That is a long-term user-centric win. And this data that you have now allows you to do that in exciting new ways. So don't use it the old way. Do something new and exciting at your company. Do something new and exciting with this data that you couldn't do before. And we'll end there and go to Q&A.
Awesome. That's great stuff, guys. Busy chat, people sharing all kinds of things. I love to see it. So let's get to some of these questions. All right. So these are, I'm gonna let AJ and Frank know these are long questions. People brought their A game to this. So Natalie's asking, why would the same prompt tested incognito across multiple browsers, VPNs, having no history with LLM result in different results and or answers and conclusions? She's not convinced that there's a steady logic or algorithm where LLMs are consistent. Any insight here?
It's how these systems actually work. They are probabilistic guessers of the next letter, the next number. And so they literally vary. Now there is you could say, okay, well, if I ask it 100 times, oh, well, how about this? There's a more interesting thing to think about. So when I'm talking to a client, one of the first things that I'll do is we'll look at what amount of your prompts in AI search that we're tracking would need grounding. So if I say, what's George Washington's birthday? The AI is actually going to be pretty deterministic about that. It's going to tell me the birthday. It's going to basically be right 99% of the time. And then that one time it's going to say something crazy that's untrue, but it's going to be pretty deterministic. What's really interesting, though, is the searches that require the prompts that require search grounding. And those are where you should pay attention. And what I mean by search grounding is it does a query fan out and actually uses Google search or Bing to ground its answer with traditional search, so that it has more context engineering to give you the answer. Those are a more interesting place to play because of the probabilistic nature. You're going to get high variance. But if you start to see that the ones that use grounding and actual search to augment its answer, you will start to coalesce around a more deterministic model of it tends to cite these 5 sites if I run it 50 times. So you start to see a pattern, but it won't be the same across the board. You're 100% right.
So Andrea is asking, when I ask ChatGPT for something like best massage salon near me in New York, it gives a very specific business recommendation with an actual link. How does the model decide which business to surface there?
Yeah, well, I would say an AJ add in here, but when you are asking for a recommendation like that, it's going to leverage different sources to be able to pull in, businesses and links to show you. I don't know if you mean every time you ask, it's giving you the same link, but in general, it's going to do searches. It's going to look at the Bing search results, the Google search results. It may pull in from Reddit and other sources, where there are, user reviews of it, of whatever it is. In this case, I think it was a salon? Yes. A salon. It's going to pull that in to be able to, to make those. But in a lot of cases, it's going to be search results.
Yeah, that's the search grounding. And that's what I'm saying. Like, look at all of your keywords and all of your prompts and think about that. Like, which of these would a model just know the answer to, and which does it have to have grounding to retrieve the right answer? And those are more interesting places to focus on. For instance, if a model was trained, the base model has no idea that those Nikes are in stock. They come in green. And they're on sale for Black Friday. Has no idea. So it has to do live retrieval grounded in traditional search. It augments that context into the chat and then gives you the updated answer. So as SEOs, there's a great place to play. Like, know what searches must be grounded in traditional search. And then if you can influence that, you're very likely to influence the context of the AI when it needs live retrieval. So separate your, it's like, this is just a known fact. This is a thing that it's not going to do live retrieval, live search for. And these are ones that require grounding.
Yep. I think it's also why when people say like, oh, SEO, what the latest SEO is dead post that you see, or people try to tell you that, or they say
we die like 3 times a year.
Exactly. AEO is this new thing. It's completely different. Yes, there are subtleties to it. But at the same time, it's like, we've mentioned it a few times. If you weren't present in the search results, you aren't even going to be in the consideration set in a lot of cases for ChatGPT or some of the LLMs to then do their analysis and decide whether or not to show you.
Question from Caitlin: are there any paid tools? Are any paid tools a substitute for log file analysis in their AI reporting, or is it always a manual in-house task?
There are tools. Shameless plug, since we both work at Botify, we do integrate all of that log data into into our platform, so our clients can do all of that access. But yeah, there are tools that you can use. There are teams that do leverage things internally. If your teams are already pulling in log files, you may be able to do some of that through with their help. I know some internal teams use Splunk and other log analysis tools. They might not be doing it for traditional search reasons, but the data might be there. But yes, there are tools, like I said, and it's something that we've supported for, I forget how long actually at this point when it comes to the AI bots, but something like a year or two at this point.
Excellent. So let's see. If I would have seen this one before the last one, it would have segued perfectly. But Kai is asking, how do you identify the prompts that need grounding?
Yeah, I mean, you can look, well, if you're doing like API polls at bulk, you can actually see when it needs to do search. But you can look and tell when it's doing search versus an instant answer. So some of it is a little bit manual, but once you get used to it, you can also make some good inferences and be pretty correct. Like, is this a knowledge question? Is it or is it a direct answer question? It's almost like, could Google answer this directly in a featured snippet? That kind of content usually doesn't require as much grounding because it has all that it's already sadly taken all that content. So it sort of knows those kind of direct answers. Yeah. But anything, especially e-commerce, is really where it's at, because your grounding has to occur. Like I said, it doesn't know stock. It doesn't know any of that. Or if you're in news, like live news, things like that, like it's always going to have to be, grounded in live search. Right now, there's no tool that I'm aware of that does this at scale amazingly. But I do think it's how you should start to think about bucketing your keywords and your prompts. Does it require grounding? Does it not? You'll find more so that most e-commerce queries do, for what I'm saying. It's a little trickier on the publisher side.
Yeah, and simplest thing to do is, again, ask ChatGPT its training model cutoff date, and know if the answer is after that, then it's going to need some grounding. If it's before, probably not. So if you ask it like, who was the number one pick in the 2018 NFL draft, it's probably not going to need to do that. Exactly. If you ask it, did the Eagles beat the Giants 3 weeks ago? It's going to say, yes, they did, because go Birds. How to get that in at least once.
I was waiting I knew that was coming. Yeah.
We all have a brand, AJ. I have to protect mine.
All right. One last thing. It's from Michael Rooks. I like this. He says, can we all just agree that however we track is just a Band-Aid until LLMs come out with their own analytics platforms?
I mean, I think, would you disagree, AJ, that you can't wait? I can't wait for that date. I can't wait for that data to fully be available.
I had the pleasure of speaking with the Gemini team yesterday, and I requested this right to their face. So yeah, 100%. I actually believe that there's a vacuum that gets filled with potentially bad or data that people are using, unintentionally misusing. And it's irresponsible for the major players not to provide this type of data so that we can make better data-driven decisions. So trust me, we carry that message as much as we can when we talk to the powers that be. I do think things will get better on that front, with more opacity, if you will. But until that time, I also, though, like I said, don't be in the camp of it's not perfect, so I do nothing. Right? Like that's not going to fly. That's not going to help your career. It's not going to that won't fly with your CMO. Right? She's not going to take that. So you can't be all in and be like, oh, it's all new, and we're going to make all of our decisions off these 200 prompts I track. Like, can't be that person. But you also can't be, it's not perfect, so I do nothing and I wait. Get in there and get messy. Be level-headed about it. Know that there are problems with it, but use it for what it's useful for, and use it as augmentation to the traditional stuff you're already doing. And you'll be leaps ahead of your competitors and maybe some of your peers. But you do need to act.
Beautiful. All right. Well, with that, that's all we've got for everybody. So Frank, AJ, you've already done your final thoughts. So I'm just going to close this out. So before we leave, tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active still on X. If anybody's there, I'm at SEO on X. So you can't say you can't find me. So come at me, tell me some dad jokes, send me some cat gifs on X would be great.
Yeah, same. I would say not as active on X, at least in the SEO space, maybe more on the sports space, but definitely on LinkedIn. I actually already saw a few requests come in on LinkedIn today. So yeah, would love to connect with you all.
Awesome. With that, we're going to let everybody go. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being engaged and with all of your great questions in the chat. I appreciate it. We'll see you for the next SEJ webinar. Stay tuned for that survey. Frank, AJ, thank you both so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.